The world does not reward the confused. It does not bow to hesitation. History does not remember the undecided. Every great achievement ever carved into time began with a moment of definiteness, a moment when a human being drew a line between what they would tolerate and what they would no longer accept. A moment when the fog lifted, excuses fell silent, and the mind locked onto a single direction with ruthless clarity. Most people drift through life like leaves on water. They wake up tired, not because they worked too hard, but because they thought too little. Their energy leaks in every direction. Their desires conflict with their fears. Their goals dissolve into vague wishes, and then they wonder why life feels heavy, slow, and unfair. But the universe responds differently to a mind that knows where it is going. Definiteness is not loud. It does not beg for validation. It does not explain itself. Definiteness is quiet certainty. It is the calm authority of someone who has decided. When Thomas Edison said he would bring light to the darkness, the world laughed. Not because the idea was foolish, but because it was definite. Definiteness threatens those who live in ambiguity. When Andrew Carnegie decided to dominate the steel industry, he didn't try. He aligned every thought, every relationship, every hour of his life around one clear objective. When Walt Disney envisioned a place where imagination would have a physical address, bankers called him naive. But definiteness does not require approval. It requires commitment. A clear mind is dangerous because it cannot be controlled by distraction. It cannot be manipulated by doubt, and it cannot be stopped by noise. Indefiniteness is the real enemy, not failure, not lack of resources, not bad luck. Indefiniteness is what keeps potential locked in the basement of the soul. It is the habit of wanting without deciding, of dreaming without acting, of hoping someone else will choose for you. The moment you decide, truly decide, something ancient awakens inside you. Your mind stops arguing with itself. Energy that was once scattered begins to organize. Opportunities you couldn't see before start appearing. Not because they were created, but because your awareness sharpened enough to recognize them. Definiteness is the foundation of belief. You cannot believe deeply in what you have not clearly defined. A vague goal produces a weak belief. A weak belief produces weak action, and weak action produces weak results. This is not philosophy. This is law. Napoleon Hill understood this when he wrote about the definite major purpose. He saw it repeated in the lives of men who rose from nothing to command industries, nations, and movements. They were not smarter. They were not luckier. They were clearer. Clarity creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates courage, and courage changes everything. A definite mind does not wait for motivation. It moves before it feels ready. It understands that action sharpens clarity, not the other way around. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. Winners act until confidence has no choice but to follow. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Years of failure, public humiliation, political defeat. But his purpose never blurred. Even when his path twisted through loss and uncertainty, his direction remained fixed. Definiteness does not mean certainty of outcome. It means certainty of intent. When you know what you stand for, distractions lose their power. You stop comparing. You stop chasing every shiny opportunity. You stop measuring your life against someone else's timeline. Because clarity replaces envy with focus. And focus is a force. A focused mind can turn scarcity into leverage. It can turn setbacks into strategy. It can turn pain into precision. Definiteness trains you to ask a different question. Not why is this happening to me, but how does this serve my direction? Purpose is not found. It is chosen. And once chosen, it must be defended. The world will test it. People will question it. Circumstances will challenge it. But every test is simply asking one thing. How definite are you really? Discipline is the daily expression of definiteness. It is not punishment. It is alignment. When your actions match your intention, resistance fades. When they don't, life feels heavy. Most burnout is not caused by effort. It is caused by inner contradiction. You are tired because your behavior is betraying your purpose. A definite mind creates habits that support its vision automatically. It wakes up earlier, not from willpower but from hunger. It studies when others are scrolling. It trains when others are negotiating with comfort. It does not need reminders of why, it remembers who. Henry Ford did not ask the world if mass production was possible. He assumed it was inevitable because he had decided it would be. Definiteness bends reality because it bends perception. You stop seeing limits and start seeing systems. You stop blaming circumstances and start engineering outcomes. Gratitude deepens definiteness. Not passive gratitude, but active recognition of progress. When you acknowledge how far you've come, your mind reinforces its direction. Gratitude tells your subconscious this path matters, and the subconscious responds by sharpening instinct, timing, and intuition. A clear mind adapts without losing itself. Adaptability is not indecision. It is intelligence in motion. A river does not argue with rocks, it flows around them, never forgetting the ocean. Definiteness gives you flexibility without confusion. You change methods, not mission. Resilience is clarity under pressure. When life hits hard, and it will, the definite mind does not collapse into chaos. It absorbs impact, recalibrates, and moves forward. Pain becomes data. Failure becomes instruction. Nothing is wasted. Learning accelerates when purpose is clear. Information stops being noise and becomes fuel. You read differently. You listen differently. You seek mentors not for admiration, but for alignment. Definiteness turns curiosity into strategy. And then there is action, the final proof. Not frantic movement, not hustle theater, but deliberate, consistent execution. Clear minds don't rush. They advance, step by step, day by day. With patience that looks like confidence, the world eventually yields to those who refuse to be vague. Because definiteness is leadership over the self, and self-leadership is the rarest power on earth. When you decide fully and finally who you are becoming, life rearranges itself around that decision. Doors open that were invisible before. Resistance appears, but only to test your resolve. And every time you persist, your identity strengthens. You were not born to wander endlessly inside your own potential. You were born to choose, to commit, to focus, and to build. Clear minds always win, not because they are louder, but because they are aligned. Not because they avoid fear, but because they move with it. Not because they know everything, but because they know enough to take the next step with conviction. Decide, and let the world catch up. Definiteness is not something you announce to the world. It is something you demonstrate to life. Life watches what you do, not what you say. It listens to your habits more than your affirmations, and it responds to consistency, not intensity. A clear mind understands this truth early. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your decisions. Every day you either reinforce your direction or dilute it. Every hour you either sharpen your edge or blunt it. And every choice, small, quiet, unnoticed, votes for the person you are becoming. This is where most people lose the game. Not in dramatic failure, but in subtle compromise. They decide and then negotiate. They commit and then hesitate. They see the vision and then allow doubt to revise it. But definiteness does not renegotiate with comfort. A definite mind understands sacrifice differently. It doesn't see sacrifice as loss, it sees it as selection. You are not giving things up. You are choosing what matters more. When clarity is present, temptation loses its voice. When purpose is strong, discipline feels natural. When vision is alive, patience becomes power. Look at those who changed history. They were not immune to fear. They were not spared uncertainty. They simply refused to let either steer the wheel. Lincoln carried doubt through Civil War. Edison carried failure through thousands of experiments. Disney carried rejection through empty pockets and broken deals. But none of them carried confusion. Confusion weakens the spine. Clarity strengthens it. A definite mind builds an internal standard, so strong that external opinions become irrelevant. Praise doesn't inflate it. Criticism doesn't deflate it. It moves forward with quiet resolve. This is the moment where life begins to test you differently. Not by asking, "Can you start?" but by asking, "Can you stay?" Can you stay when results are slow? Can you stay when no one is watching? Can you stay when motivation fades and routine remains? Because success is rarely dramatic. It is repetitive. It is unglamorous. It is earned in silence. The clear mind understands that mastery is boredom survived with discipline. It knows that momentum is built by showing up on days that feel ordinary. It trusts the process because it chose the destination. And something strange happens when you persist long enough with clarity. Your identity changes. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for reassurance. You stop needing certainty before movement. You become someone who expects alignment because you've created it. At this stage, obstacles feel different. They don't feel personal. They feel practical. Problems become puzzles. Resistance becomes refinement. Pressure becomes proof. Definiteness creates a calm intensity. a presence that others feel before you speak. People trust clarity. They follow it. They invest in it. They sense when someone knows where they're going. This is leadership, not over others, but over self. And self-leadership is magnetic. When your inner world is organized, your outer world begins to cooperate, not magically, mechanically, because your decisions are cleaner, your standards are higher, your time is protected, your energy is directed. You begin to say no faster. You begin to act sooner. You begin to recover quicker, because clarity shortens suffering. Indecision stretches pain across years. Definiteness compresses effort into progress. And when setbacks come, as they always do, the definite mind does not panic. It pauses, recalibrates, and advances. It understands that delay is not denial, that failure is not a verdict, that difficulty is not direction. Direction is chosen. Every great life is built on a few unbreakable decisions. Who you are, what you stand for, what you will not compromise. Once those are set, everything else becomes negotiable. The world does not need more noise. It needs more clarity. It needs people who know what they want, why they want it, and are willing to pay the price without complaint. Because the price is always fair. Effort for reward, discipline for freedom, focus for fulfillment. Clear minds always win, not because they are perfect, but because they are persistent. Not because they avoid chaos, but because they bring order into it. Not because the path is easy, but because the direction is non-negotiable. So decide. Decide who you are becoming. Decide what your life is about. Decide what ends today. Excuses delay half commitment. And once you decide, move, quietly, relentlessly, with conviction. Let your actions speak until doubt goes silent. Let your consistency make the argument. Let your results introduce you. Because when the mind is clear, the way forward reveals itself. And if this message sharpened your focus, if it reminded you of the power that comes from clarity and decisiveness, then subscribe to this channel. Subscribe not for motivation, but for direction, for discipline, for the mindset that builds uncommon lives. Clear minds are rising. Make sure you're one of them.